I'm Paul O'Brien, the Vice President of Institutional Technology and CIO at Indian River State College. And we have Kendall Hilaire with me, who's our Dean of our virtual campus. And we're going to talk a little bit about, I'd like to put a disclaimer out. First of all, we consider ourselves just neophytes at the analytics game. We've been at it now for probably about 4 years. So we've got some lessons along the journey that we're excited to tell you about. And I really want to try and make this as interactive as we can. So if you do think of something as we're going through this, please stop us, and we'll be happy to talk to you a little bit about what's going on. Just to get started, just so as you know who Indian River is, we initially started out in 1960 as Indian River Junior College, one of Florida's community college institutions. There's 28 of us in total, and so Indian River is located just about 50 miles north of Palm Beach, about 100 miles south of Orlando, so right on what we call the Treasure Coast. There's 4 counties right there. And so just going back in time, in 1967 we became Indian River Community College, kind of added career and technical 2-year programs to the institution. And in 2008, Florida, looking at the baccalaureate degree production in the state, decided that the university system in itself, even at full capacity, could not turn out enough baccalaureate degrees to drive the kind of economic engine of the state. And so in 2008, Indian River became one of 5 schools at the time that were authorized to start offering baccalaureate degrees. So we achieved certification from SACS as a baccalaureate granting institution and began offering baccalaureate degrees in 2009. Together, our school right now is about 28,000 head count and about 14,000 FTE. So a lot of part-time enrollment, still probably those community college roots will very much a commuter school in practice today. A couple of things that happened this year. We are very proud to, we became an Aspen finalist with distinction, so we were tied with Broward College in for second place and among the top colleges in the nation for 2-year schools. A little bit about us then, from some exciting things happening in Florida if you're not familiar with it. One was that a lot of states wrestle with what to do with underprepared high school students coming to the college system, and we kind of solved that in Florida by declaring back in 2014 that all high school graduates were college ready. So that was a legislative initiative, and at that point developmental education was no longer required for any student that recently graduated from high school back over a 10-year period. All right, so as you can imagine, that population moving in towards college credit directly without the need for developmental math or English, in itself would become a little bit of a challenge, and we're working through that. The other thing that happened in Florida was that the funding model from the state shifted from very much an FTE model of input driven, right? You count up the number of bodies in the seats and you get funded based on that, and that switched to all new funding coming by way of performance. And performance was around a couple of key indicators. One was completion rate, but we didn't look at all students because we've only got access to things like iPads data. Where did we go? We looked at FTIC, first time in college, that population. So really what we discovered at Indian River, the case in point, is probably about a population of about 6,000 students out of our 28,000 was determining the funding for the entire institution. All right, so that's ultimately the way that played out. And then finally, at our institution, just looking at our own data, about 60% of that population that would be driving performance was on financial aid, and about 70% of them were working about 30 or more hours per week. So you can see that part-time relationship there, right, where a lot of students are working and going to school at the same time. So that was kind of a little bit of our background.
As Paul mentioned earlier, I am the assistant dean, or the dean of the virtual campus at Indian River. The virtual campus launched in the fall of 2013. And the year before that launch was a lot of heavy lifting by a number of people behind the scenes to create the courses for the virtual campus, but also the virtual campus was actually a recommendation made by a work group at the college who were very serious about kind of collectively looking at how we were offering our online programs and trying to put full degrees online. And so the work group, which consists of faculty, administrators, and staff, made a recommendation to create a virtual campus. So the years 2010 through 2012 was a lot of ideas being thrown around and heavy lifting to create some of the first degrees that launched during the fall of 2013. To date, we have 12 wholly online degrees that consist of baccalaureate and associate degrees, and we have about a head count of 6,000 students that are taking classes wholly online. And at this point, this is the largest campus in terms of enrollment. We have several other branch campuses, but we're seeing tremendous growth in our online arena. The virtual campus is unique. Prior to the launch of the virtual campus in 2013, we'd been offering online courses. But as I mentioned before, the work group really wanted to get serious about taking all those courses and turning them into the full degree programs that were offered online. But they also made another recommendation that had to do with creating master courses. So the idea here is that all instances of, let's say, an ENC 1101 has the same look and feel if it's offered online. And as you'll see later in this presentation, this master course idea really allowed the implementation of analytics to take root, and it is what it is today at Indian River. But the master course model follows Quality Matters. Is anyone in this room using Quality Matters at their own institution? Okay. We find that it's a great resource to use as an external benchmark. We hired a number of instructional designers that have terminal degrees in instructional design theories, but it helps to have QM as kind of that external criteria for measuring the types of courses that we're creating in the virtual campus, and use that with our faculty to point to some external characteristics or an external benchmark really for why we're asking for some of these characteristics inside the master courses. Our faculty that the design team works with serve as subject matter experts. So we pair one instructional designer with a faculty member, pairing the instructional design expertise with the subject matter expertise. And it's been a great partnership. We've continued that model since 2012.
I would just comment here that having been there when we had these discussions, and the master course model in itself could be a presentation by itself, right? But one of the things, probably we were not thinking analytics at the time. We were thinking in terms of economically that we couldn't support 29, 30, there's 30 faculty full-time in the English department. We couldn't afford to support 30 versions of an English course, English 101. So economically, we decided we could do one course really, really well, right? And so now, as it turned out, developing master courses in itself was very entertaining, to say the least, along the journey, right? But I think today we have got broad acceptance of the master course philosophy, but it did take a while to get there. But as it turned out, and Kendall's saying, it really allowed us to do some things, because to me, it was a lot like a NASCAR, right? If all the cars are the same, then I should be able to look at certain things such as instructor performance. I should be able to look at things such as how students are doing in those courses, if everything is kind of equal. And I should be able to make some assertions about what's going on there. And that was kind of the idea with analytics when we ultimately put it in place.
At the same time that we were creating these master courses, we also really took a strong look at the types of professional development that we were offering at the institution for our faculty, and we realized that there needed to be a lot more focus on online pedagogy. We had our instructional designers with their expertise, but we really wanted to make sure our faculty knew that this just wasn't fluff, that there was real empirical evidence and research done on instructional design and even the master course model that was driving this decision to create these master courses for the virtual campus. So we also really looked at beefing up our training. So we've been doing that for about 3 years now. We have over 167 faculty members who have achieved QM, Quality Matters certification. And we also have a course that was created by our design team called the Virtual Campus Instructor Training Course. And that takes QM, but it has a component of QM, but it really takes it moves on from the instructional design piece to a focus on online instruction. So our faculty have to go through the VKit, and once they've completed that, they've been exposed to a number of online teaching techniques and a number of other topics that we believe they should be exhibiting, and characteristics they should be exhibiting in the online environment. To date, we have 185 faculty who have completed the Virtual Campus Instructor Training course. And a lot of this, all of this could not be possible without the leadership support. So I'll let Paul speak to that.
No, so I think number one, when we put this vision out of the virtual campus, and I can tell you, I call it the Jurassic period for Indian River, and that was, we're at a time, we've been in the online business probably since 1995 is when we started playing with this modality, right? And I call it playing because a faculty member would say, hey, I'd like to put this course online, and some dean would say, great, do it, right? And we would offer it, right? And there was no instructional design, there was nothing, right? We did hire what we call some course developers, but literally the role of them was the faculty member would come in and say, hey, I want to put this course online, and they would whip it up into a Blackboard shell for them and put it out there, right? So as we got serious about, but here's what we noticed. We noticed the constant ticking up, like Kendall threw out 6,000 students online, but we noticed around 2010, 11, that this thing was now hitting around 15% of our entire FTE. And then as we started looking at that, we started looking at success rates in those courses. And we noticed there was quite a gap between the course taught online and the course taught face-to-face, right? At that point in time, is maybe in some courses as much as 25, 30 percentage points, right? And so when we put the virtual campus in place, myself, and Indian River's got a little interesting structure. We have a vice president of academic affairs who's not actually in charge of all academics. They're actually in charge of what we would traditionally have called the associate in arts side of the house. And we have another vice president of instruction that looks after the CTE side of the house. So the three of us kind of partnered up on this initiative to put this in place, right? And so at that point, and I'm going to be honest with you, at that point in time, I did not want the virtual campus to report to me. But our president had other ideas, right? So I really thought that it should belong under an academic side of the house, right? Because to me, it wasn't about technology. But I was the one that was kind of promoting this idea more than anybody else, and so I ended up, our president told me, yep, you're going to run this. I'll let you hire a director. But that's kind of the history. But to this day, it would not be successful without that partnership. And the three of us meet every week, and this is on the agenda every single week. All right, some aspect of this virtual campus, we're talking about it all the time. Okay, and you'll see why when we get into analytics and the things we wanted to achieve. Without that partnership, it simply wouldn't have happened. But today, 38% of our entire enrollment at our institution is online. So now we're really interested in this. And over 50% of our baccalaureate enrollment is entirely online. So this is now a big deal in the performance world, right? And then finally, so this is pervasive, right? And some of the things we've done here, that partnership has allowed to have happen, right? And among the things that, when we start talking, you'll see that all faculty, even outside of the virtual campus, even though we're going to focus in on that today with predictive, all faculty at Indian River are required to use Blackboard Grade Center. All faculty are required to have grades in there by week 4 of the course. By week 8 of the course, you'll see that we're benchmarking that old midterm grade idea. So some of those things are required. And without that partnership, those types of things couldn't happen, right? And so the three of us are pretty cohesive on trying to drive this thing. Now, it's not that we agree on everything all the time, but essentially we come together and we put a lot of these initiatives in place, and that model's worked very well for us.
And the partnership along with constant communication. I mean, I'm asked to present to the adjuncts several times a year. I'm on the faculty agenda, faculty meeting agendas quite often, because we just want to make sure that even though we know this is our world in the virtual campus every single day and our faculty are teaching online, a lot of the things that we're doing sometimes isn't always communicated to the general faculty body. So I try to get out in front of them as often as possible and just try to keep that dialogue going and the channels of communication. And that is a direct result of the partnership that Paul has with his cabinet counterparts. So we've kind of hovered around this whole idea of how we put the virtual campus together, and the three-pronged approach is Paul's concept here. But really, the virtual campus itself really we had 3 main areas, and instructional design is obviously one of them. The online instruction is a major component, but we've also got this idea of the students. We have all these students coming into our virtual campus courses. We have our instructors, our online instructors who are looking at things in their own virtual environments, but the use of analytics has really allowed us to take a look at what's happening with the bigger picture. And we'll get into that in just a second, but it is important to note that all 3 of these these aspects has allowed us to do what we're doing currently with analytics. We also, as I mentioned, we are using analytics. We started in the fall of 2014, building the reports, working with Blackboard. But as soon as we brought the team on site and we started putting the ideas together, keep in mind this is fall of 2014, we launched the virtual campus in fall of 2013. So we had one real year of launching all these degree programs and trying to figure out what was happening. We realized with the Blackboard team that there was a lot of work behind the scenes to be done. And so this is one of the lessons learned that I would really like to stress to anyone who's interested in doing this. I'm looking at Miami-Dade over there. Because there was a lot of behind-the-scenes work that needed to go into this. And one of them is working with the reports and research and reports team. But as Paul mentioned earlier, the use of the Grade Center is critical. If your faculty are not using the Grade Center and they're not using it properly, there's no way that analytics can get in there and grab the current score for each student for each course. So that was something, you could hear crickets in the room when it dawned on us how we had to get every single one of our faculty members using the Grade Center, and that was part of our professional development as well. But it wasn't something we really thought of, at the start, so it was a big hurdle there.
To me, a lot of schools, and you hear a lot of presentations around, are you data-driven decision maker or some such term, right? And a lot of times my frustration especially as we were looking at student success, is all we ever had to work with in the past, frankly, was what happened. There was no way to really influence what was happening, right? As I look back, we get these data sets presented to us, and we're looking by, semester by semester, going backwards and trying to infer something that we can do in the future. I was so excited to see A4L at the time because for the first time, we would be able to take action while the course was in motion, right? And that was a major shift for our institution, right? So rather than looking at what happened at the end of a semester when the grades are in and done, for the first time we could go in, right, at week 4, week 5, and take the pulse of what was happening in these courses, right? And a lot of the work we did with Blackboard at the time was about designing, frankly, pretty customized reports that we were going to need to kind of drive this thing. Right, and you'll see that as we get into the reports themselves. But my excitement was, for the first time, I can get my hands on something that I can do something with right now, right? And if we could put the structures in place at the institution, we could start to drive this the right way, right? Through getting, frankly, and our model is really simple. You get course success rates at a certain level, that equates to retention rates at a certain level, equates to completion rates. So we see a course as the smallest unit possible that's going to ultimately drive completion, right? And that's kind of our thinking, right? So we put a lot of effort, and we still to this day put a lot of effort at that academic unit level, that single course. And I'll talk more about that as we go on some of the initiatives we put in place, right?
And as you can see, we have these 3 areas of focus just to launch a successful virtual campus, but that also is being impacted. So it impacts, and it also is being impacted by analytics. So if we get those 3 categories off the ground running and doing it properly from the start, it allows for an easy implementation of analytics. But what's great is then you can circle back, and now we're using analytics for all 3 of those areas. And one of the things that I'm really excited about that we're going to begin working on this fall with the Blackboard team is using historical data with our master courses. So we've had several years now of these master courses running, and we're going to take a look at historical data and take a look to see whether or not department-wide, if there are any major, we'll say regressions in these courses where students are wiping out semester after semester, module. What I'm trying to say is each instructor knows how well their courses run, but no one's taking a look at the department level. So if we can go in using this data to take a look and see if there are trends in all of those master courses in a given semester over several semesters, would that drive some of our instructional design processes moving forward? So no one's ever had that opportunity to take a look at that data before. And that's where analytics will come in, and our team's going to really take a deep dive this fall. We're also using it to take a look at our instructors as they're instructing in the online environment, and we're also using the analytics to take a look at our online student behaviors. And that's been a very area of great interest for a number of people around the college.
I think too that just to, for what it's worth for people considering something like this, one of the things that when we put QM and master courses in place, there was kind of a mindset among faculty that the courses would teach themselves, right? In other words, if you were putting this great and quality, because a lot of times we get the question, can you show that a QM course or an instructional design course by professionals achieves better success rates than one that isn't, right? And we would keep going back to this instructor presence in the class, right? But there was almost this idea that from faculty that, hey, this course runs itself. And we had to do quite a bit of work over the years of saying, no, not true, right? That's not the way this works, right? So I can tell you this, the first time we started, and it was probably a bad move looking back, so don't do this, but I'll tell you what I did, right?
Another lesson learned.
Yeah, lesson learned. So I started looking at these courses, and one time I brought every faculty member into a room who was batting below 60% in these courses. And I started putting the data up on the screen of what we were able to see in the course. And I would point things out, like, for example, if a master course in English or history had 7 discussion posts in it, I could show the faculty that I can go in and see how many of them they responded to. Right? I could see how much time they were spending in the course. Now, we didn't call out individual faculty in that. I just showed people what we could see. Right? And I can tell you, within one semester, that behavior changed drastically. Right? So maybe in some sense that was a good thing, but I'm just telling you that we did have to combat that idea that these courses were kind of like correspondence courses or something, that were self-teaching. I don't know what they heard, right? But there was some effort put into that. But really what I was after was, frankly, one of the things, and I can tell you it came from our president at Indian River, as we started to go down this road of data, and not just with Blackboard, but data in general, our president actually made a statement that we do a State of the College address every year that he does, and he actually made the statement that no one is going to get fired over data, right? Because there was that fear as we started to make this shift towards using data to make decisions and to drive budgets at the institution and so forth, that that Big Brother's kind of watching you here. Yeah, Big Brother was watching, but to the point of trying to make things better. And I think one of the things that has bore out over time is there is accountability, right? But what we're after is, are you going to our academic Institute for Academic Excellence, which is a faculty professional development initiative on campus? Are you learning how to use technology better? So I think we've demonstrated to faculty over time that that's what we're after, right? We're not about trying to put scores up here and say, there's no way you're going to be renewed over these scores, right? We're trying to make it better, and I think I just want to say that because that culture, I think, as you move into these initiatives, you really have to take stock of your culture, right? And how people might perceive this kind of data being developed by the system on the ground, and just the level of detail that we can actually get into, especially in the online world, because everything you touch, everything a student touches, a faculty member touches, we can collect data on it, right? And we can take a look at it.
And communication, again, was key. Getting in front of the faculty at the faculty meetings, which was frightening at first, especially when you know how they felt collectively about analytics. But communicating with them, getting them involved. This fall, we're launching a faculty pilot group where they're going to start looking at the analytics that we have and offering suggestions to Blackboard about things that faculty members would like to see at the course level, the department level. So getting their involvement was critical as well. Another thing, it might seem somewhat silly, but what we did is we branded our own version of analytics so that the people could see it wasn't just Blackboard analytics that we were using at the institution. We made it Indian River analytics and created a logo and everything. And it's on every document, every job aid we send out to faculty. So we were just trying to make it a little bit more of our own so that hopefully, maybe subconsciously, I don't know, but we would have the faculty kind of take ownership of this. So as Paul mentioned, for the first time, with these reports, we were able to ask at any point in the semester what is happening versus at the end of term when the grades were in and asking ourselves what happened. So this is an example of a report. I don't know how well you can see it back there in the back, but this is one of our Analytics for Learn reports. It's a student success report. And as Paul mentioned earlier, we have certain milestones within a semester where grades are expected to be inside of the system so that our instructional deans and vice presidents can go in and select one of their divisions and drill into every single course that is running given that term or in that term in their area and find out how things are looking. So this is an example of we selected business, the division of business and information. We went into the accounting department, and this particular dean can go in and see every course within, that's every section of the ACG 2001, which is an entry-level accounting course, or an associate degree accounting course, and find out how those courses are looking at any given point in the term. So we can find out how many students in the red here are currently at 70 or below, or excuse me, below 70 in the grade center. They can drill down into each one of those sections of a course and find out which students are behind. And it also provides the dean with the name of the student, whom obviously we've hidden that information. It provides the advisor information, so the dean or the instructor can go in and contact the advisor right away, talking about good communication. But it allows our instructional deans and vice presidents and anyone else who accesses these reports to take a look at what's happening at any given time in the semester.
And here's what we do with this, just so you have to think about, okay, you've got the report, what's the action you're going to take with these reports, right? So I often make the statement, as do my counterparts on the academic side of the house, these reports are designed to be a conversation starter. So for the first time, like I said, right, we've got real-time data about what's happening in a course. Now, some of these you might look at a faculty member and go, there's 2 or 3 people below 70, I'm not going to worry about that. But maybe you look at a course, maybe it's a new faculty member or an adjunct faculty member or whatever it is, and 15 of the 25 students are below 70. Hopefully that causes an instructional dean or a department chair to go to that faculty member and say, hey, what's going on, right? Is there something? And we talk a lot about coming to help. We're from the government, we're here to help, right? So, but we talk about we're coming to help, right? So, and a lot of times what Kendall's team discovered, a lot of our faculty don't know of the resources our own institution have on campus, right? They're aware of the big ones, for example, the Academic Support Center for students and so forth, but there's a lot of initiatives going on that we can sometimes point a student to get help, right? Or maybe the faculty member themselves, one of the first things we're going to take a look at is, have they completed the virtual campus instructor training class, right? So, right, or maybe they need some help there. So here's the way this works. We have 9 instructional deans that oversee the areas of the college, and they report up to 2 academic vice presidents. And then there's myself and Kendall, and we meet starting at week 8 of the course. We bring all 9 deans into the room, and we want to know, where's your problems and what are you doing to fix them? And each dean will report out on what they're doing to fix their problems in the area that they have. And at week 10, we come back in again, and we do it again. Is it getting better? And that's what we're after, is that everybody has, and one of the things we talk about a lot at Indian River is every one of our faculty, and you can ask any faculty member, and I think I would be correct in saying this, to 100%, certainly with full time. But if you ask them what their success rate was in a course last semester, they'll be able to tell you. Everybody's got to own their numbers, right? And that's part of what, to me, the data does, right? So now let's say, here's what we're seeing hopefully will happen from that. Maybe it's a matter of pairing a faculty member up who's pretty successful teaching this course with somebody who isn't, right? You're batting 55, somebody else is batting 85. Can we get you together and start talking? So that's the idea when I say it's not that we're out to be punitive, right, in some way. We're trying to get you help. Maybe the help comes in talking to your colleague. And I started out as faculty at Indian River, right? I taught in the math and computer science areas, and I get it that was a very private thing, teaching. Once you went behind that door at the time and you started talking and lecturing and recording grades, and there probably was, okay, there was some banter between colleagues about different courses and so forth, but very unusual if, for example, you would invite a faculty member, another colleague into your classroom to see how you were teaching something and give you advice. Those kinds of things over time are what's now happening at Indian River, those kinds of conversations. But it took a long time. It took time to get there, right? And it took, like I say, the administration, I think, really setting the tone by, we're trying to get it better. It's not you're scoring 55 and you're not going to teach this course anymore. Although in fairness, if things don't get better, that can happen, right? We have taken courses off people, particularly in the virtual campus. You're just not good at it. You know, we've had faculty tell us, well, I like doing it. Well, you've got to get better. You know, so that has happened, but that's not the goal. The goal is, can we get you help? Can we get the students help? Right? That's really the goal.
And another key element to getting students help and helping the faculty is working with the advisors too, because that communication between instructors and advisors weren't always as rampant as they are now. So another report that we put together happens to be the Advisor at a Glance report. And this is a standard report found within Analytics for Learn. The first one you just saw, the Student Success Report, we had to customize. But this is a report. This is an example of an advisor and his or her complete caseload. So they can see all of the students in their caseload and the courses that student is currently taking, as well as some of the information from Learn, how well they're currently doing. It allows our advisors for the first time to be able to take a look at the online student behaviors and say, well, you've logged in fewer times this week than the average of your classmates. You know, what's going on? Maybe you need to think about spending more time inside the system. So for the first time ever, they were able to get a glimpse of what's happening inside of Blackboard as well. I used to speak to advisors, and they would tell me that they had to have the student log in to Blackboard, and then they'd come around the desk and take a look at Blackboard with them. So for the first time, they're able to get that bird's eye view and get that reporting as well.
No, we continue to work on this. Right now, I'm happy. There's still soft spots as we look at data, but I think, and I credit this directly to our work with analytics and with the whole initiative, right? So it's the deans working together, the faculty working together, but we have closed the gap between the face-to-face and the online success rates now by 4% over the 2 years of this data. Actually, we looked at spring data there, and we're now within 1 point of the face-to-face equivalent of the course, right, on average. So that continues to get better. So you can see here now we're batting around 78% success rate for online. Like I say, there's still soft spots there, right? Because averages, as we know, hide, right, things, right? So a lot of our work now is going back and looking at those courses. Some of them are weird to me, right? Why has American history got a low success rate? I don't get it, right? So we're going back and trying, and that's where Kendall's work on the instructional design side, maybe there's some assignments or some of the way that course is put together that's killing them. I'm not sure, right? But we're going to use analytics to take a look at that. And an exciting one for me is the students who took at least one online course at Indian River during their time graduate at a higher rate than those who only take face-to-face classes. Right? So that's kind of a little anomaly there, because a lot of times we focus in on the gap between success rates in face-to-face and online, but yet students who have got that mix of at least one online course, right, do get through their programs faster than students who don't take any online courses.
And that mirrors the national data too, so that's
yeah.
We're on a good place, or in a good place. And then also the collaboration and the communication among departments and different players that have to do with online instruction. It's allowed us to jump into, we've completed our analytics initiative from several years ago. We're now moving into Predict. And I think a lot of this is because of the work that we put into play with our original Analytics for Learn initiative.
I would say that's a kind of a, you know, a lot of times you look at these direct measurements, right? It's very quantifiable, 7% increase in this or 4% in this. But some of the wins we've got is these faculty-to-faculty conversations that are happening and faculty-advisor conversations, right? So think about the Advisor at a Glance report. So a faculty member gets to see how Johnny's doing in his history course, and he's not doing well. But he doesn't know how Johnny's doing in his other courses. But the advisor does, because the Advisor at a Glance report's got them all. And we're actually talking now, because of the conversations that happen between our faculty and advisors, of making that Advisor at a Glance report available to faculty, right? So as they can see how this student's doing in multiple courses, not just as one, right? Is the problem just in history, or is it in all their courses? Because that might indicate another type of problem, right? Maybe there's a health issue in the family, or there's something going on, right, that we need to be talking about. So this collaboration that we now see between faculty and counselors, that's pretty new for us, right, that level. Our VP over Student Services actually called a meeting, a Friday afternoon, if you can believe this, at 3 o'clock, and invited faculty in to meet with the advising staff. We had a full room. We had to move the room. A lot of faculty showed up just to be involved in that conversation. Now, what we do with that, we're not sure ourselves yet. We're looking at a faculty mentoring program. We're looking at some different things we might do with that collaboration. But that was a win that came directly from our analytics initiative that really we weren't thinking much about. We were thinking what do the advisors need, what do faculty need, but they found each other, right? And they're talking back and forth. So that was a good win.